Aloha mai kākou e na hoa makamaka o Kulāiwi. Mahalo no ka o ko nana ana mai ke ia la. Mahalo no ke a o ana I ka olelo makuahine o ko kākou po e kupuna. O au o e ke la kani au pi o Crozier. O au ke kumu no ke ia papa olelo Hawai'i. Maki wau e mahalo I Kamehameha Schools, Bishop Estate. No ko lākou mālama ana I ke ia polokalamu. I hiki a māko a pau, I kā ko a pau ke a o I ka olelo Hawai'i. No leila, I ke ia la, mamaki wau e ho'olauna ia o kou I ku'u hoa aloha, o ia hoi ka hoku o Kulāiwi, ke kaikunane hiapo, o ia hoi ka hoa hanau hiapo o ka ohana, o ia hoi o kunane, ke ia o ka la'i o kona antai. Aloha mai.
Aloha.
Pehea oi.
Maikai a o oi.
Maikai, oikai. Pehea makaukau oi no kia la.
Ano makaukau?
Yeah, well, makaukau wau.
Pono e makaukau.
Ai, polole. Sa pehea kou la.
Ua maikai ua nui ka hana makapunana leo.
Oh, ai.
Yeah.
Pehea nā keiki.
Maikai ke pau nei ka ue ke I manawa.
Oh, ai.
Kahi no ho o maka ia ke kula.
Ai. So ke ia ka mahina e lua. Ai, no lākou.
Yeah.
Loa nā keiki hou.
Ai, he umi kuma kolu paha keiki hou.
Oh, e hia ka he luna o nā keiki a pau.
He iwa kālua kumaha.
Oh, nui nā keiki. E hia mau kumu.
E kolu kumu manawa piha, me e hā kumu kokua.
E ke la po e kokua, mau hola wale no lākou e no hoi.
Ai.
Oh, maikai. So e hia mau keiki kāne?
Umi kuma lua.
So hapa no.
Hapa.
Oh, maikai. No leila, ka hapa o lākou hiki ke olelo Hawai'i.
Ai,
no
kai
ka
hapa
mea.
hapa e ke a o nei ki o manawa. Ke puka mai nei kai olelo Hawai'i.
Yeah.
So ano, mai kai e.
Kupai anaha.
Kupai anaha.
Yeah, nani loa ke ike ke la. And a apo koke no lākou.
O iai he mau keiki lako, a ahe mea ea e I loko ko lako, mau po'o, ahe pilikia, ahe hopo, a pa ako ke ka.
A lili ki me ku'u mau hoa mana maka kula ke e.
Ai.
Hiki ke ninini ka ike I loko ko lako no'o. Ai, maika, ia ka hana maka punana leo.
Maka punana leo, ho'o mako makalina poi, me ka pule, me ka himeni hai pule, a me nā mele e ano ho alai ko lako no'o, a ho'o makaukau no ka la, mahope o ke la, ho'o ka awale ia nā papa e lua, nā keiki e hā e 5 makahiki, a me nā keiki e 3 makahiki, no leila, a ia'u nā keiki e hā e 5 makahiki,
nā
leila,
nui.
e nā keiki nui, hana mako I ka haawina, ke la ano haawina ano maalahi no lako. Ka oki paha, ke kala paha, ka tuko paha, ke la ano hana.
And he mau kumuhana ka oko, ai. Ai, so he
Ke la me
hana
ke ia
kumuhana
mahina.
like ole.
O ke ia mahina, ho maka mako me ke keiki, o iai he mau keiki hou lako ma ke kula, ano he mea hou ke kula ia lako.
Polole.
Ho maka me ke keiki, a leila ho mau ia me ka ohana, a me nā holo na Hawai'i, e like me kai a paha, me ke la nā manu paha. Leila, loli mau ke kumuhana ma ke la me ke ia mahina.
And no hea mai ke ia mau keiki?
No nā wahi like ole o ahu.
O ia?
Ai,
mai ka au ko olau.
Ai, mai ko olau, ke kauna, ke kai no waianai, ewa.
O ia?
Ai.
No ka mea hana paha ka makua I ke kauna. Mai kai. Po mai kai o kou. Ia, mako punana leo, ka punana leo ka waiahao. Hea ua pi'i ka he luna o nā keiki. So mai kai ke la. And ua hele o kou I Discovery Zone.
Ai, ke la pule aku nei o lea nā keiki ke la.
And e hia mau kula?
E kolu, nā punana leo e kolu.
Ai, o Honolulu, Waianai me ka waiahao. Ai, so pēa ka he luna o nā keiki a pao pēa kana ono paha.
Ai, kana ono paha.
Ai, po mai ka I kākou ka la hui. I ke ia mau pua o lelo Hawai'i.
Pololei.
Ai, no leila, ke ia la. Pono paha kākou o lelo hao lea.
Ai.
Te wao popo ia lako. Maybe we should speak in English this part. But hopefully all of you who are watching, have an idea about what's going on. And because I ask those questions that I think, we've learned. And I would say we've learned because while I'm teaching you, I'm learning at the same time. I don't think there's a time when I'm just teaching that I never get something out of it. You know, the other night I was talking story with someone, and we were talking about the whole idea of learning and teaching in Hawaiian is the same word, a'o. And there's a'o aku, a'o mai. And people will say a'o aku is to teach and a'o mai is to learn. But that's not really the case, because as you a'o, you're doing both at the same time, which makes so much sense in a Hawaiian perspective and from our culture, that you never really stand as kumu and haumana. It's always a process, a process of a cycle, that everything is shared, the ike. And so that's just my little bit of ike for today, But some of the things that we just talked about, hopefully you understood. We were talking about things like nohea maina keiki, if you got that, where were the children from? And what were some of the other questions? Ehia mau keiki ho. So, those kinds of things. Someone just called today, in fact, and said, wow, they didn't realize how much they're beginning to learn and understand now at this point in Kulāiwi, because they went back and they watched all the vignettes. I don't know if you had a chance to watch lesson 24, but it's a collection of all of the vignettes so that you could actually see yourself grow. And this person who I called said, wow, I watched the first one, when Tutu brings home Auntie Lehua. And gosh, that's a good memory. Yeah, that's the very first one we ever did. And that was hilarious. But this person said they didn't realize and they couldn't believe how much they understood, from that very first one. I mean, because that one was real simple. Oi koinoa. How many times Auntie Lehua asked, no hea mai oi, no hea mai oi. But after a while, you really got it down. But as each vignette progressed, each lesson progressed, this student realized, wow, she was getting better and better, and now she's using it at home. And oh, that's a success story for Kulāiwi. And when that's a success for Kulāiwi, it really is a success for our people, because the more of us who catch on, the more of us who olelo, the better it is for us as a people, because we can be very proud that our olelo is coming back. And at one time when people were saying it was going to make, we were, I think, quite maka'u, but then with Punana Leo and with immersion schools, we've had a chance to bring it all back. Ola ho. And so today we're going to look at another special mele. This one is a real short one, Pokole Loa, only like about Ava Lina. Okay, and my mana'o is, we've talked about, our first mele was He Hawaii'el, our next mele was E Ku'ututu, we talked about our tutu, and this time we're going to talk about you being the punahele. And I don't know if you know anybody who's been a punahele, and I'd like to think that I'm a punahele, but who knows? And punahele, for those of you who are going, hey, punahele, that's my friend's dog's name. Punahele is favorite, okay? It means favorite, so it's not just a dog's name, but it's a very beautiful word referring to the favorite. And there always seems to be one in the family who's selected as the punahele. And in our family, I could say it's somebody else, but I really think it was me. I would like to believe it's me. And in Kalai's family, who's the punahele?
Well, I would think it would be my sister.
The baby.
Anela, yeah, the baby.
Yeah, well, that's because she got all these older people.
Because she's the youngest.
Pepe. So yeah, there's this punahele, and it's interesting because although we talk about the punahele of today, there was definitely a chosen one. Culturally, Hawaiians, the kupuna would look for one who had certain skills, who had certain talents, and take this child and hanai this punahele and raise this child so that they could meet their full potential. And we've seen that a lot. We've heard it a lot in a lot of mo'olelo about our ali'i and say like kamehameha, but this song talks about the punahele, talks about how cherished they are by the makua. And you have any mana'o on this mele?
Well, just when I hear this mele, then I think about my daughter.
Oh,
But I guess you can use this mele referring to either a ipo or maybe even your own keiki.
Polole.
So when I think about this mele, I kind of refer to my keiki, my kaikamahine, kalehua.
I think so too. I don't always think of myself, but punahele, yes, I guess we could refer to our children, but also what you said is right, that a lot of times they refer to the ipo as being the punahele. And so, with the mele that we've chosen, well, I've chosen for Kulāiwi, you won't find me giving you the kauna of the song, because I think that's not the intention of this program. It's really to give you an experience in looking at the language that's being used. And so you'll see real literal translations of the mele. And you won't get the kauna, the double meaning, the hidden meaning. For that, you have to go talk to the hakumele. You have to talk to the composer, because it's like names. And I think I talked about this before, that I'm not one who likes to translate people's names. So if you call me up and say, oh, can you translate a name? I'll say, oh, aole, because I don't know how you got that. I don't know the mo'olelo, the story. I don't know the experience that came with it. And so it's not mine to say what your name means. And it's the same way with these mele, that I don't feel that it's appropriate that I would give you the deeper meaning when I don't even know. I would be guessing at what it is, unless I spoke to the composer, in which case that's between me and the composer. And if that composer wants to share with you, then it's your kuleana to go find out. But I will not, presume to know everything about the mele, but I will give you the literal meanings of each line. And the other thing is, you might be asking, well, how come, where's the music and all of this? Remember that the perspective of Kulāiwi is olelo. So we're looking just at the language, and we're just very blessed to have a wonderful pu'ukani, one who sings for us. And so it makes Kulāiwi really nice, because else it would be me singing and telling you the song, and that would just be really boring. Okay, manaka. Well, mahalo nui, and if you makaukou, then I makaukou, because keia manawa e himeni ana o Kulāiokona I ka mele o he punahele no oe. Mahalo nui. Mahalo nui a oe e Kulāiwi. Ua nani loa ke la mele, nani loa a nahe nahe. Mahalo nui. Before we even begin to look at our mele, there's one pattern that I feel I need to teach before we even start into the mele. And that's called the passive pattern. It's also called the EI pattern, Okina E-A-E, EI pattern. And what that does is take an active sentence and turn it into a passive sentence. Now, some of you may be sitting there going, what are you talking about? Okay, well, let me explain. Okay, it's something like this. I'll kind of explain it in English so you get an idea. If I said, I ate the cookie, okay, that means I took an active role in eating the cookie. I ate the cookie. Or you could say and make like, well, you know, you didn't really have anything to do with it, but the cookie was eaten by me, okay? The cookie was eaten by me. Maybe that takes more of the blame off of you, okay? However, that's the pattern here. One says, I ate the cookie, ua aiau ike cookie, and then the other says the cookie was eaten by me. And what happens there is we use the ia. Now, if you were watching when we did the mele ku'ututu, we had this little ia in that mele, the okina ia. And what that did was change the sentence into a passive sentence, okay? So that instead of saying, we will always hear her voice, it said, her voice will always be heard, okay? So this is kind of a tricky pattern, and it's not like something that you really need to know right away, but it would be nice, you know, it'd be nice to know. The reason why that I'm bringing that up is because you find it a lot in Mele. You find a lot of times they're going to speak in the passive, and it just makes a lot of sense, more poetic maybe, because it's softer instead of taking this active role in the Mele, okay? So let's just take a look at a few examples so that you can get ma'a to actually seeing or hearing that passive voice being used, okay? And let's start out with the pattern, ua aiau ika opihi. Ua aiau ika opihi. Now this is a pattern that you've seen before, right? I ate the opihi. Now, watch what happens when we say the opihi was eaten by me. Ua ai ia ka opihi e a'u. Now what you're seeing here is this ia being put in, okay, right after your action. Ua ai ia ka opihi e, and then here's something else that's new. This is called, actually you don't have to know what this is called, okay? It's called an agent marker, but you don't have to know that. All you have to know is that this marks who it was done by, okay? So in this case, the opihi was what? Was eaten. And how do we know it was eaten and not going to be eaten or is being eaten now? This ua, right? That's our past tense marker. So the opihi was eaten by me. And you see how au turns to a'u in this pattern, yeah? Ua ai ia ka opihi e a'u. I'll give you a little time just to look at that. Ua ai ia ka opihi e a'u. E kalaiwa ana o mama I ke ka'a. Okay, kalaiwa, maybe you don't recognize that action, and that's drive, right? So who's doing the driving? Mama. Mama is driving the ka'a, the car, okay? Kalamai, that says ke ka'a. If that's a little too light for you, e kalamai, I just wanted to make the point that you got three things going on here. The action, who's doing it, and who's receiving the action. And then look what happens when we put into the passive, I. Here we have mama taking an active role in driving the car. Mama is driving the car. And here we have the car is being driven or will be driven. Just because we put this little ia inside, we've turned that sentence into a different kind of pattern. Okay? The car will be driven or is driven e mama, by mama. And you see that e again, marking who did the action or who is doing the action, okay? Or who the action is being done by, okay? So I give you a little bit time just to look at this. E kalaiwa ia na ke ka'a e mama. So the ka'a is being driven. Yeah? So you see how it turns it around, being driven, not is driving, right? The ka'a is being driven e mama, by mama. Hikino. Here we have the name of a mele, okay? Perhaps you've heard this mele before. Aloha ia o wai anai. Aloha ia oai anai. Okay, maybe you remember that song. If not, then call that Hawaiian station so you can get them to play it. Okay, but here we have a perfect example of using ia again. Not so much that wai'anai is doing the aloha, but that wai'anai is beloved, is loved. Okay, see it? Aloha ia o wai'anai. Now, if we're to take that ia out, and it just said aloha o wai'anai, then it would be wai'anai loves. Wai'anai is the one who's doing the aloha, okay? In this case, wai'anai is the one receiving the aloha, okay? Wai'anai is loved. Aloha ia o wai'anai. Another title of a song, Kalehua I mili ia. Kalehua I mili ia. The lehua, you ever heard that joke? In mili's ia. No, that's not what it means, okay? Kalehua I mili ia, okay? The lehua, that is caressed, okay? Mili is to caress, to fondle, yeah? Like a teddy bear, like a baby, okay? Mili, kalehua I mili ia. So the lehua, that is caressed, okay? So you see how it's not the lehua who's doing the caressing, but it's the lehua that's being caressed, okay? That was caressed. Hikino? What an interesting word, yeah? Caressed. Sounds so soapy. Anyway, kalehua I mili ia, aloha ia o wai'anai. So hopefully you get the idea. And if not, a'ole pilikia, kelepona mai. And in fact, I didn't give you the number, so I'll give it to you right now. 842-8059. That's right. Evalu eha elua. Evalu ole elima eva. Okay, that's the Kulāiwi hotline. And if you leave your name, your number, and your question, I'll call you and answer your question, okay? Hikino. Anyway, let's go on. Let's move on to this song. And let's take a look at the new vocab that we're going to see in our mele, okay? He punahele no oi. And the kahaku mele, the composer, is Albert Nahale'a, okay? Just in case you wanted to know that. Now here's our new words. Punahele, we heard that earlier in the program. Punahele meaning favorite. Pulama meaning to cherish, okay? To care for, to love, yeah, to give loving care, okay? Pulama, to cherish. Poli is your bosom, okay? That's why I don't know if you ever heard of Hi'iaka ika poli o Pele. Hi'iaka in the bosom of Pele, okay? That's what that means. Rakama soul in the poli of Abraham, okay? Get the idea of poli. Okay, so now let's go through the mele. The first line is so simple. He punahele no oi. He punahele no oi. Okay? I just give you some time to look at it, to let it sink in, to get the idea. He punahele no oi. So, did you get it? You are a favorite. Okay? What are you going to do about that no in there? Why do we put things like this inside the no? Because it emphasizes the fact that you are indeed a favorite, okay? He punahele no oi. Na kamakua. For who? Na kamakua. For the parent, okay? For the parents, or of the parents. Okay, and of course it doesn't say na namakua, but sometimes when you're referring to a group of people or a couple of people with the same kind of that fall into the same category, you can just use ka, okay? Na kamakua. Pulama ia no oi. You are indeed what? Cherished. Ah, there's that ia. You see it? Because if that ia wasn't there, it would be you indeed cherish, okay? But because we put our ia, you are indeed cherished. Okay? Pulama ia no oi. You want to repeat after me? Pulama ia no oi. Ikino, give you a little time. Next line, real simple. Me ke aloha. With what? Aloha. Maikai, me ke aloha. You can say that, me ke aloha. He wahine ui. He wahine ui. And now we know that this mele wasn't being written for a punahele who was a kane, but a punahele who was a wahine. Okay? Hikino, he wahine ui, you are a beautiful woman. Ai, ui. A he pua nani, and a beautiful blossom. A he pua nani. Okay? You want to try saying that? A he pua nani. Ma ku'upoli mai oe. Yeah. And close to my bosom. You're close to my bosom. Okay. And you see that use of mai showing the action of bringing you towards my poli. Okay. Ma ku'upoli mai oe. And the last line, e ku'ulei. Okay. And this is, remember the e over here is how we use to call someone. Like if I wanted to call Kulāiwi, e Kulāiwi. Yeah, I start with e. If I wanted to call Ralph, e Ralph. Okay. You always start off with e. So in this case, that's what we're seeing here. E ku'ulei, calling to my lei. Okay. And remember in our last mele, we saw lei being used for mo'opuna. And remember I talked about how lei is figurative for a child or a favorite or someone that you really have a lot of aloha for. Yeah, and so that's why we're saying e ku'ulei instead of just saying e ku'ukeiki or e ku'uipo. They call this person e ku'ulei. Okay, you know, was that right, Kai? See, it was a very, very short mele. So I'll go through it with you one more time. He punahele no oe. Repeat after me. He punahele no oe. Ikino. Na kamakua. Na kamakua. Maikai. Pulama ia no oe. Pulama ia no oe. Yeah, that ia sounds like this kind of ia, you know, not like ya or ia, but ia. Okay. Pulama ia no oe. Me ke aloha. Me ke aloha. He wahine ui. He wahine ui. A he pua nani. A he pua nani. Ma ku'upoli mai oe. Ma ku'upoli mai oe. E ku'ulei. Hikido? So now, all you brothers out there, you have to turn around to your wahine and sing her this song. All you keiki, all of us keiki, should turn around and himeni to our mama this song, okay, and sing to her. Or if we have our keiki right in front of us, this is the time to sing this mele, okay? So, Ikeia Manava, I'm going to ask Kulāiwi Okona to sing for us He Punahele one more time so that you have a chance to join him and practice singing it. And this was a very simple mele. This is not pa'akiki at all, okay? So why don't you try? Hikino, makoko? Hikino. Mahalo.
Ia me
Wait, mahalo nui wa nani. I think the next song that we do, we have to do something real lively, yeah? because we're too mali. By the time the mele is full, we're all ready to just boy. Aye. So next mele, I think we'll choose something that's a little more, upbeat there. Because right now, probably all our babies are just falling asleep.
Hopefully mine.
And hopefully mine. Ai, wa mahalo nui ko hele ana mai. Mahalo no kahimeni ana no mako. Ai, he maumana o paha ko.
Ole.
Wa ke oi aloha aku I kau.
Ai, mua ke wau aloha aku I ka uwahine a me ka umau keiki makahale. Aloha nui. Ke hoi nei wau I ka hale ke manawa.
Ai, hiki no. Nā ke kua he opo mai ka ia o ko apau. Mahalo no ka oko nana ana mai. Mahalo I nā kahu vai o Kamehameha Schools, Bishop Estate, no ke ia polo kalamu. Oi ho aku. Aloha.